Well, welcome back, everybody. Today we've got another gun gripe coming down the pipes for you. Today's gun gripe is about range safety. And by range safety, we're referring to indoor shooting ranges, public shooting ranges, basically any kind of organized shooting event where you got people around you, especially people you don't know. And what this video is meant to touch on is some of the issues people end up having, the just messed up things you see at the range, and hopefully some of the ways that you can correct those sorts of things. This video should be a great reference for a new shooter that's never been to a public range or wants to at least enlighten themselves as to some of the things that some of the more experienced shooters are going to look for. So what are we looking at on that, Barry?
Well, everybody on the range is a range officer. If you see any kind of foolishness going on and you see somebody fixing to get hurt, you need to intervene and stop it. Or contact a range staff and they'll stop it. Now, a problem I see a lot at range is people try to shoot guns that they're not big enough to shoot, they're not strong enough to shoot. You can get yourself hurt with a gun that's more powerful than you are, or you can hurt yourself with a gun by not knowing how to properly fire the weapon.
That's right, and don't think that it's cool to try to impress your girlfriend or your lady friend with some big old Magnum gun that you're not used to, because you're going to hurt yourself.
Right. This 50 caliber Desert Eagle, this is not a gun for everybody. Just because you're a man doesn't mean you can handle this weapon. Now,
and it dang sure don't make no sense to let some 110-pound lady shoot it either.
No. There was a report of a guy at a gun range around here who was killed by one of these because he fired it like this.
Oh yeah.
And the slide jackhammered him in the forehead and killed him. This is not Hollywood, people. This is for real. This thing will hurt you. If you're not an experienced shooter, you don't need to be shooting this weapon, and especially if you're a young lady or girl, 110 pound, 105 pound soaking wet, you don't need to be firing this gun.
It's okay if you're a lady and you can handle it and you've got experience firing big bore stuff, but guys, if you're watching this video and you've never taken a young lady to the range, do not hand her one of these big revolvers or handguns and let her hurt herself. It's just not cool.
That is correct. I don't know whether you saw the Mythbusters episode, but a guy had his finger chopped off by one of these 500s.
We'll do it.
Inexperienced shooter, he cocked the gun and he held it like this with his thumb by the cylinder gap. And when he fired it, his thumb came off. The Mythbusters, Jamie and Adam reenacted the thing with a glove they had full of gelatin and chicken bones and so on and so forth, and this cylinder gap will cut your thumb off. I don't know why he was holding it. Maybe it was so heavy you couldn't hold it, but you can't have anything out here. But this kind of gun here will hurt you too. It will hurt you bad.
It will.
So you got to be careful when you shoot one of these. And even you guys out there, when you get one of these, you start off with a 275 grain hollow point, not a 500 grain Hornady.
Yeah, go with the light loading. Magtech makes a light loading that is excellent in that to get used to it.
You work your way up.
Right, and also when it comes to this sort of stuff, what we're referring to also is when you see this sort of stuff happen on the range, everyone is a safety officer. If you're on a public range and you see someone trying to do this jackwagon crap, stop them. I don't care if you're 12 years old. If you see somebody doing something unsafe, it's your responsibility to politely tell them that they're in the wrong. And anybody that's on the range, you should understand if you're being corrected or if you correct someone, it's not that people are trying to get onto you, it's just that the most paramount thing is safety on the range.
Gotcha.
Muzzle discipline, always making sure that the muzzle of your weapon is trained in the safest area possible. Down into the floor with your finger off the trigger, always actions open, everything unloaded until you're ready to actually point at the target and shoot. Especially indoor ranges, when you're dealing with other people around you, you don't want to be sweeping anybody with muzzles, you don't want to be having your finger on the trigger, taking pictures and doing fancy crap to cell phones. You know, you have to have your game face on when you're on a public range, and that is very important. And you may not think that people notice you flagging them or not with the muzzle of a gun, but believe me, most of us that are experienced with guns, they notice when you sweep them with the muzzle. They may not say anything, they might be trying to be polite, but believe me, we see it, and it gets on our nerves.
I see all kind of unsafe activity at the range all the time. People walking back behind the yellow line with a gun in their hand. When you're at the range and you have to step back from the firing line, you always put your gun on the on the table that's in front of you facing down that way. The major thing I see going wrong, especially when you're not in a range where you have those barriers, you'll be out somewhere and somebody will have a malfunction and they're turning that gun 360 degrees,
Finger on the trigger.
doing
and
everything they can to get it cleared, and that's not the correct way to do it.
Yeah, at the indoor range down the road, I was talking to one of the fellows up there, and they had a lady that was having trouble with her Glock. She walks out of the range, hearing protection on, the whole 9 yards. Her Glock is malfunctioning, whatever. And she's sitting there, goes up to the guy with the gun in her hand and goes, "Why isn't this working? The mag is in the gun, full of ammo." And she is squeezing the trigger right at the guy's chest. "Why ain't it going bang?" And yelling, because she's got a hearing protection on. "Why ain't it going bang?" Real loud.
Right.
And she had a stovepipe. But, I mean, come on, people.
Right, and you would
know?
think that would be rare, but it isn't. I do a lot of
not.
gun classes at the range down the road, and they tell me horror stories that I can't believe almost every time I go down there. Now, another problem these people have, they're watching television, Hollywood. This gun right here, in Hollywood, holds 20 shells. This only holds 5 fully loaded, but in Hollywood, they can edit the film, and they don't want to bother with reloading. But you see this too in Hollywood, they're firing blanks, no recoil. Guy went down to the range, had a 12 gauge, loaded it with double-aught buck, and shot it like that. They hauled him out of there on the gurney with his face rearranged.
Oh, yeah.
So this thing happens all the time, and you can go on the internet, you can see people getting bopped in the face with one of these all the time because they don't know how to shoot it.
They watch too many movies.
That's right. If a gun is too big for you, be man enough to say, "Hey, I need a smaller gun." There's there's no animal on the face of the earth you can't kill with a 44 Magnum, but guys want to have one of these so they can go ooh and ah. But a lot of these times that ooh and ah can get you hurt.
It sure can.
So you got to be careful.
Well, speaking of crazy movie magic with firearms, that's going to be our next gun gripe.
That'll be a good one.
For our next gun gripe, we're going to be taking it out into the field, and we're going to be doing some testing to see if we can feasibly make some of these kind of things happen through the use of movie magic.
Right.
And we're going to put to the test some of those crazy movie poses
Right.
that we see,
Right.
and we're going to see if you can actually hit stuff with them. We're going to try gangster shooting. We're going to try, James Bond style, with the hand in the air. We're going to do the Han Solo deal with the broom handle.
Right.
And we're going to try all these poses, see if they work, and hopefully dispel some of those silly rumors. Well, movies are cool, and we like watching guys,
Right.
look neat and everything. We're going to see if you can actually hit anything like
Right.
that. I've never tried it, to be honest with you. I've never shot a pistol sideways.
But
So-
it kind of makes a movie totally unbelievable. You can have a fine movie with fine actors and actresses in it, but when some guy shoots 54 rounds out of a 1911 without reloading, that kind of kills it for me. I mean, it's totally unrealistic. Who in the world is advising them on these gun sets? Clint Eastwood was probably the first one to count his rounds in Dirty Harry. That was one of the first movies where they actually kept track of the rounds they were firing. But Hollywood is Hollywood, and Hollywood gets a lot of people hurt. It gets a lot of people misinformed. Watching a Hollywood movie is like listening to the news. You're going to get nothing but misinformation. You're going to get steered in the wrong direction. People buy the wrong gun because they see it in Hollywood.
Boy, and I tell you too, we could go on all day about Hollywood myths and all the inconsistencies in movies.
That's right.
And I just love a World War II movie where a guy fires what seems like 200 rounds out of a Garand without reloading.
Right.
Also, one thing I've noticed too on some of the World War II movies is not only do a lot of those movie stars load the Garand improperly, but I've noticed there's sections where they will reload the Garand and they'll get some kind of a misfeed or a jam or something, but they'll just, pan to the next scene where they're shooting it.
Right.
When really, I've seen them like load mags backwards and all kind of stupid stuff.
Right.
Well, that's it for this week. For next week's gripe, you'll see us take it out to the field, and definitely going to try some of those movie myths, and that's going to be next week's gripe.
Got it.